I'm co-leading and introducing historic legislation to move the federal minimum wage to $25 an hour. That would make it a true living wage. As someone who taught economics at Stanford, let me explain.
Are we about to hear the opinion of a Stanford economics professor on the minimum wage? I don't think so. Congressman Ro Khanna's website says he has a BA in economics and a law degree from Yale. That doesn't seem like the right education background for a professor of economics. In 2016, in the Stanford Daily newspaper, he's described as a lecturer in the economics department and says of himself that after he left the Obama administration, he wrote a book about how to bring advanced manufacturing back to the United States. And the Stanford chair of the economics department asked him to teach a class on marketing and competitiveness. Now, I know the congressman just said he taught economics at Stanford. But in my opinion, doing a one-unit lecture where you invite think tank leaders, political leaders, former administration officials to see how they think about economics, because you are a former administration official, doesn't make you an expert in economics generally. And under Obama, Congressman Khanna was Deputy Assistant Secretary of the U.S. Department of Commerce.
As someone who taught economics at Stanford, let me explain why this makes so much sense. In 1968, the real minimum wage was $14 an hour. Today, it's $7.25 an hour. That's right. That means that workers today are making half what they made in 1968.
No. Back in 1979, around 15%, 12 to 15% of workers earned minimum wage. Today, that number is 1%. Basically, very few people earn minimum wage. If you look at the actual hourly wages that people do earn, these are median, meaning the value that half of people make more than, half of people make less than, usual, weekly, real, meaning adjusted for inflation, earnings over time, and it's indexed to be 100 in 1978, earliest year available. What you can see is that workers today make 12% more adjusting for inflation than they did in the 70s. Now, you can say only 12% more after adjusting for inflation, that's not very good, and I would agree with you on that. But plus 12% is a lot better than minus 50%. This is a plot of the real minimum wage, real meaning adjusted inflation. Do you see this spike here? That's 1968, $1.60 nominal, 14 adjusted for inflation. That's the one spike, the greatest real value for minimum wage that our Stanford economics lecturer is telling us we should have double that. And for what reason?
At the same time, productivity has increased 2.5 times. That means the average worker is producing 2.5 times more value than they were producing in 1968, yet they're being paid half as much.
No. Congressman Khanna is comparing the average worker's productivity to the minimum wage. Those are two separate metrics. As I pointed out previously, most workers don't earn minimum wage. And if you look at the median, or the value that half of workers make more than, half make less than, you see that adjusting for inflation, the median wage has actually increased. And just like it might be confusing to use the average wage here, because there are some workers who make a ton of money, you could think about a software developer at Facebook who makes $500,000 a year. It would be confusing to average some really high exorbitant salaries with everyone else's salaries because those salaries are non-representative, and it would pull the average up. Well, likewise, it's confusing to use the average productivity measure, because a productivity measure, an average productivity measure, will take into account the massive amounts of money produced by employees at companies like Facebook or hedge funds or wherever.
Hands of the multimillionaires and billionaires. That's why we have 19 billionaires in this country who are worth 12.5% of our economy.
Again, the congressman is confusing statistics. He's taking billionaires' wealth and dividing it by the country's income. So he's saying Jeff Bezos owns 10% of Amazon. Amazon is worth $1 trillion. Divide that by the amount of money America makes in a year. Those are different statistics. Wealth, the money you've accumulated by your stock appreciating in value, divided by income, the value that the country makes in a year. Strange mistakes for a Stanford economics teacher to make, in my opinion. Thanks for your time.